control her own food to become the first winner of the TV show Alone Australia. Well, after that story aired, Gina and I sat down in front of a live audience to talk more about her backstory. From her childhood, where she felt like she never quite fit in, to her friendship with Hugh Jackman, to the huge popularity she found after revealing her vulnerability on national TV.
Tonight is the barefoot Logies moment on the red carpet. And it's weird, but fabulous.
I've always had this sense of I'm too big. Too big. I felt like I've got three people's personalities that got squeezed into one body, and I've been having to figure out how to be with that my whole life.
Wow. This is wild. How does this even happen?
Now, I feel like there is absolute space for me to be as big as I am and not feel like there's a culture saying you must be small. Or if there is, I'm not interested.
Welcome to our very first Australian Story Live. We are so thrilled that you could all come out tonight. Would you please welcome Gina Chick?
Thanks for having me.
What's this journey been like where you've gone from Gina in the bush to Gina on the red carpet and kind of this environment that's about as manufactured and far away from nature as you could get?
Yeah, it's wild. But, you know, I think there's a bit of a Cinderella in me as well. You know, I love dressing up, as you saw with the possum coat. Part of it was practical and part of it is because I think I do have a bit of an inner diva, even if it's a bush diva.
Sleeping naked in the possum fur is ridiculously fabulous. How glamorous is that?
Like there's something about me, it's probably from the 90s actually, from being a bit of a diva on Oxford Street. So I found that the whole Alone journey is actually letting me express all of these different parts of myself, and there's a context where it's like, okay, red carpet, do the whole thing, but do it barefoot, you know. And I've managed to get away with not wearing shoes for anything so far, and now it's a brand. But more seriously, I feel like a wild person. I feel like a wild creature in a human body. And for me, it's really important to spend time in the wilderness, spend time connecting with nature. But it's also, I'm in a body in this time, in this life, in a modern world. And so I'm interested in survival skills in all the jungles. So it's about being able to stitch the worlds together.
You probably want to see what I'm doing, don't you? You want to see that.
I think the world is probably finally ready for Gina. She's the icon of being at home in the wild.
My family think I'm bonkers, but they're not at all surprised that I'm doing something like this.
Alone Australia, it's the most legit survival challenge out there. It's the one where the 10 people go out into the bush with 10 items each, and the last person to come back wins it.
Oh, this moss feels amazing.
Everyone was like, as if that hippie lady who dances on the moss and just goes around singing and talking to the animals is going to win.
I got a fish. I'm eating fish for breakfast. Oh, my goodness.
Gina's probably the last person to do a reality TV show. But it quickly became clear that she wasn't just surviving to win the show. She was there. That was her life. She could have stayed years.
So how have Australians responded to you when they see you in real life after having watched Alone?
It's the most gratifying thing. I was expecting to get trolled. Like that bully kid in me is like, really? Really? Are we going to do this? And then I've found the most staggering thing, which has been that there has been zero trolling, like none. Like who gets that? And so as a result, when I walk down the street, people come up and they are like so happy and so grateful and they want to connect. And like I want to connect, like I'm making a stand for connection. So if someone comes up and they're like, oh my goodness, my kids love watching you, or my 90-year-old mother thinks you're great, or we've just built a fire in the backyard, or we're going camping. Many of the people who come to stop me are women, and especially postmenopausal women. Yeah. And the story is thank you for showing that we don't have to be invisible. Thank you for showing that we have wisdom in these bodies. Thank you for showing that we earn these bloody silver feathers. And so, so I have been so humbled and gratified by the response that I've received from wherever I go in Australia. I'm just like, oh, I'm just really touched. I was an odd child. I was a definitely strangeling, and humans never made sense to me when I was a kid, but nature always did. I'm the eldest of 3 girls. There was 3 of us in 3 years. We were lucky enough to grow up in Jervis Bay. It's a wild place that's teeming with life.
Our house became a menagerie. Her bedroom at one stage had a massive, almost like a 10-foot high bird's nest, a bunch of like sticks and some kind of animal that's been rescued in her bedroom, like shitting all over the floor. And it was hilarious. It was brilliant.
She often went to school with some little creature in a pocket that there was something sad and wrong about, and she'd had an eyedropper and she'd feed it during the day.
I got known as the crazy bird girl. I was, chewing up seed and spitting it into birds' mouths at school. Gina's kissing birds, she's vomiting in their mouths. For me, that was just normal.
It felt like you always had a strong sense of yourself, even from childhood. But did you, or is it something you've learned?
I can remember being in, I think, 4th grade, and the PE teacher got us to walk around in a circle. It's a hot day, Aussie school, and walk around in a circle. And I took a step outside the circle and I walked the other way at school on purpose. Now, I didn't have any friends. Do you know why? I always had a really, really strong sense of myself, and also had a really strong, this drive not to change. Like, I just couldn't do the thing where I would contort to be liked, which is then why I didn't have any friends. But that then has ended up making sense, in my 20s and 30s and 40s and 50s. But, at school it was a pretty rough ride.
You said in the program that as a child you didn't understand humans. Do you feel like you do now?
Yeah. It took me a long time to learn how to be a human, but I figure I figured it out. Back then, there were no diagnoses. We didn't get hauled along to find out what letters would be after our name. And, if I had, it'd be an alphabet. And I've had to learn how to be a human in a body where the world didn't make sense. But I've spent so long kind of going, well, what is that? What's actually going on? And I guess healing the parts of me that didn't know how to be vulnerable with people, or didn't know how to be, have a conversation. And these days, I love the fact that I'm a human, which I definitely wouldn't have said when I was a kid.
One of the moments in Alone that I think most resonated with viewers was when you got to that point where you said, actually, I've tried to tell myself I don't need people, but I actually really do, and my God, I'd really like a hug right about now. What does it actually feel like to be without any human contact for so long? Like, what does it feel like?
Yeah, for me, I'm an introvert, and I use extroversion as a survival mechanism, a bit like a pufferfish. A pufferfish, when it gets threatened, it goes... Basically, you cannot get near me. And so I learned very young to use my energetic side and my personality to keep people away. But for me, the definition of an introversion is someone who is fueled by solitude, and the definition of an extrovert is someone who is fueled and nourished by connection with people. So for me, being alone for 67 days, I was not lonely. And there were a couple of times when I had, moments of missing people, but the world that I live in is so connected to every single living thing. Like that platypus, Lady Lorela, she was my friend. Like I would chat with her every day and she would chat back in platypus. And when I'd go to harvest, like a little sapling, I'd say, hey, do you want to be part of my shelter and do something that none of your mates are doing? And so the solitude part for my personality was amazing.
So this was my preparation board, and I've written all over it, get fat, get fatter, fat is fabulous.
The two things really that take you out of alone would be weight loss and malnutrition, or the psychological part about being alone. Well, I knew she had the psychological part absolutely sorted.
I started out at 76 kilos and I ended up at 94. This has got everything, it's hilarious.
I tell you what did actually hit the cutting room floor, but it was a really lovely anecdote, was your sister talking about how you never want to see a sausage roll again because you had to eat so many sausage rolls in the lead up to Alone.
Yes.
Gina usually eats extremely healthily, like beautiful, fresh, produce, and then going and seeing her shove like 20 sausage rolls, gagging, down her throat every day to try and put on weight. And she's shoving like sausage rolls down her throat with little tears coming out the corners of her eyes going, I can't eat anymore.
Actually, no, it's the licorice bullets. I ate 460 grams of licorice bullets in a day. The first shot started about 3 hours later. The last shot was about 3 days later. No more licorice bullets.
The day has come. I am heading out to actually look for food.
She doesn't even think about food for 3 weeks, and then she's just like, okay, it's time to catch a fish.
Holy shit, got a fish. Here we go. Ha, gotcha. It's a boy fish, and she's got spermy bits. Because that is life force.
Your friend said he thought you could have stayed out there forever.
Yeah, Stevie, bless. I could have stayed out there forever. There was a point where I lost contact with base camp for a satellite issue, and for a moment I was like, has there been a war? Like, am I out here forever? Can they come and get, does anyone know that I'm here? And it was real. Like, for quite a few hours I didn't know if I was going to be out there. And then it got real, really fast. I was like, oh my goodness, I could be out here on my own, the crazy lady with the wild hair, like talking to the platypus and chewing on raw eels. And that was not a good thought. I could do it, but the idea of not having a village at that point would be, that would be heartbreaking.
So one of the things that keeps you going is, on some level, the knowledge that it's not forever, that it will end at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're designed to live in villages. That's how we're designed. The human animal is designed to live in packs. We're designed to live in groups. And in our DNA, the 350,000 years that we've been Homo sapiens, for 340,000 of those years-ish, we were hunter-gatherers, living in small bands, moving through the landscape to get our needs met from the land. Like, that is the predominant information in our DNA. And so I think we all resonate with that. The last probably week to 10 days has been hard. I love being here, but I want to hear someone else's stories. I want to hear someone else's life. It's more that this place is giving me a... No fucking way! What the fuck?
Yeah.
Oh my God!
You did it.
Oh.
You're
here.
Can I give you a hug?
Yes.
Yay.
No.
Well fucking
You won, Gina, you won.
well fucking done.
Oh my God.
You did it.
Oh my God.
You're such a fucking legend.
Oh my God.
I didn't expect that I would win. I just knew that I was only going to come out if they pulled me out. And I didn't suffer out there. I didn't suffer. So this is the nest.
It's beautiful.
This is my nest. Survival is about being at home in wild nature.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
It had to be you.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about Lee, because I think people also really were so touched by that moment at the end of Alone when you turned around and Lee was there. To have that relationship that you have now, how hard was it to consciously go, we can decide how this operates. We don't have to be defined by other people's expectations of how exes are meant to be?
There was a transition period that was very uncomfortable, but what I found is that when I love, I love. I can't just turn it off. Like, if I love someone, I only want them to flower and blossom. And to me, it's like I can't say what someone's journey is or what their soul's purpose is. That's actually nothing to do with me. So when we made our separation, we pretty quickly found a shape together where we could still facilitate together, where we could still be friends, where we could still totally piss each other off and have screaming arguments. Lee has the ability to press my buttons like no one. He turns me into a banshee, and I'm grateful to that because, like, you know, it's not a normal state. So I get to explore my rage. I get to explore the part of me that completely lose my shit, and it's been a bit of a journey, but it's a good one.
Hey, Dad, I can throw it.
You and Lee separated so he could make the choice to be a father, but because of your age and so forth, you didn't have the choice to be a mother. To an outsider, that looks like an almost superhuman level of selflessness to allow him to make that choice when you weren't going to have that choice yourself.
I tend to try to live my life in relationship with capital R reality. Not the reality I think should be or that I want or that I think is fair, because life isn't like that. And this is just what was actually there. So he had a whole bunch of desire to be a dad. I was done with being a mum. That's like, there it is. Like, you can't argue. Well, I couldn't argue with that.
What's it been like post-Alone to have so many more people know who Blaze is and to be invested in her story?
Beautiful. I think anyone who's lost not just a child but anyone close to them, one of the things that happens is people don't know what to say, and so they say, I'm sorry for your loss. How many times do you hear that? I'm sorry for your loss, which just means I got no idea and I've got to say something. And like, we live in a culture that, for me, doesn't have healthy rituals of grief. It doesn't have, you know, when you look at First Nations cultures, there's beautiful ceremonies and rituals. There's ways of holding us in our grief. It just means that for anyone walking around after a loss, we're not supported by our culture. And what happens is that we don't get to hear their name. I mean, does anyone relate to that? Like, you've lost someone, and then when do you get to hear their name? And so for me, you know, I lost my daughter 10 years ago, and all of a sudden she's alive again in all of these people who are coming up to tell their stories of loss or grief, or telling me that they loved a photo, or that they resonated with me keening next to a fire and, you know, wailing and feeling a resonance for that. And that, for me, is now we're telling the truth. And that is what I live for, the telling the truth part. I'd rather we all just told the truth, because now we're actually having a conversation. So I'm really grateful that she gets to be a part of it. I've howled and I've wailed and I've screamed at the sky to give her back, and I've done whatever it is that grief has demanded of me, which has meant that I have let her go. I've let her go. I've let her go over and over and over. I'm so much more as a human because of her and because of losing her. I'm not afraid of a single feeling that might turn up in me or anyone else. That's all her gift moving through me in the world.
Let me ask you about one more thing before I go to the audience to take some questions. When the Alone finale was about to air, up on social media, out of the blue, pops a video of Hugh Jackman going, oh, I just want to wish my very, very good friend Gina Chick all the best, and I'm rooting for her to win the finale of Alone. It's like, what, this extraordinary woman who's got the whole nation transfixed also is best friends with Hugh Jackman. How on earth is this possible?
She is incredible, the most creative, the most hardcore, the most connected to nature, beautiful person that I know, and I am so proud of her. To my soul sister, Gina Chick, you rock.
Oh, my Hubie. So Hugh and I met on day one around the corner here at the Uni of Technology doing communications. We sort of collided in the very unglamorous cafeteria with the fluorescent orange chairs and the RSL spew carpet and the $2 fried rice. And we started talking, and then we didn't stop pretty much for the whole day. We missed the whole first day of classes. And I don't know, there's people, I think, in all of our lives who there's just an instant recognition, and that was what it was. 35 years we've been friends. So, yeah, he's my buddy.
My name is Penny, and I watched your show, and I have to admit, I watched it with my children, and the first episode I thought, we all said, oh my God, you're nuts. And by the end of the 10 weeks, we all just fell in love with you and your story and everything about you and your genuineness. So I guess my question to you is, what is your advice for people who are a little bit different to make connections quicker when they're not necessarily the normal?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Penny. The thing that I've found through Alone was the first time you saw me dancing in the moss, it's like, oh my God, she's loco, she's loopy. And then the second time it's like, oh, maybe there's a little bit more there. And then it actually didn't take long for people to drop in. So what I think people connect with is real. It's when we're real. And to be a bit different, it can feel very unsafe to be real because the feedback that we get from the world is that it isn't safe. And what I've found through Alone is that by allowing that authenticity to shine through, it may not be for everyone, but for the people who are willing to engage with real, the doors are now open. And what that looks like, I think, is different for everyone.
Hi, Gina. I'm Prue. I was thinking about your writing. You write with an amazing capture of language and of such beautiful expression on your socials and in your blog. And what was it like for you when you found out that Charmian Clift was your grandmother? Was that an epiphany, and did it connect you to something?
Charmian Clift was a journalist. She married an author called Georgia Johnston, and one of their most famous books is My Brother Jack.
And that was her in the early time when she was starting to write with Johnson.
She was this sort of like wild bohemian trailblazer.
I mean, the first thing when I found out that Charmian was this sort of wild trailblazing woman, I was like 20 when I found out about Charm at the, height of my own wildness. And my first thing was, oh my God, thank goodness I make sense. Because I hadn't really made sense anywhere. But now it's like there's this direct line of wildness. So that was incredible. And finding out that she was a writer also, because I've been writing and I've been loving writing since I was a kid. And I could feel the river of words, almost coming from her into me. But here's something really interesting. I don't read her work because I'm so sort of ferociously defensive of my own voice. I don't want to be influenced by her style. And so it's like, because I can feel there is so much of her in me.
Jane, hello. Gina, do you still feel you're too big for the world, or do you think it's ready for you now?
I don't feel like I'm too big for the world anymore. And I'm so super grateful to have this whole experience happening when I'm in my 50s rather than in my 20s or my 30s, because I think I probably would have, with all of that bigness and wildness, probably blown up in destructive ways. Now I feel like I can dance with my own bigness and find a way to fit that into the world. And I feel that increasingly there is room for women to be, not obedient, not good girls, to have a voice. We're still bashing away on that ceiling, but I don't feel like there are ligatures and strictures around my size anymore, and it's really nice to be able to breathe. It's like taking your bra off and going, let the girls free.
Thank you.
Gina, let me ask you one question to finish. On Australian Story, Lee said that on Alone there's a philosophy that relates to the whole of life. Do you agree, and what is that philosophy?
I think that we live in a culture that pathologizes discomfort. Right? Anything that makes us feel slightly uncomfortable, it's like, oh, quick, reach for a durry or reach for the TV or doom scroll or go get laid or go smoke a spliff or, go for a run, whatever. Anything to not feel discomfort. Whereas we only grow when we're uncomfortable. And so being able to have tools to be in that discomfort and hold ourselves there, that's when we start to metabolize the edges of that fear of whatever it's going to be and realise it ain't going to kill us. And then our world gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and we can find what the discomfort is teaching us. And then we can rely on ourselves, and that self-reliance becomes the ground that we stand on. So then every step that we take is in our own rightness. So if that's a philosophy, I have no idea what I just said, but that would probably be it.